Hey everyone, it's me RGB guy back with another video, and today we are going to learn about Vsync. If you are a gamer, I'm definitely sure that you have seen this screen. Let's try to understand what this is. Before we understand what Vsync is, let's try to understand the problem that it solves. So imagine you have a final display, right? This display is any kind of monitor, right? And you have a game output. This output is generated by our GPU, right? Once this output is generated, the GPU will try to send these values to our final display. These final values of the game output are sent to the display in an ordered fashion, and that order is from top left to bottom right. This is how it goes. This order is known as scan line order, right? Because we are scanning line by line. In this way, the final display pixels are colored. Now let's try to understand where Vsync comes in. Let's imagine that this is a display refresh and this is a game refresh. Let's say that our display is refreshing here, 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 here. These are basically the points or the timestamps at which the display is refreshed. For example, if our frame rate is 30 FPS, which means 30 frames in 1 second, which means 1 frame in 1/30th second, which is 33 milliseconds. So this is 33 milliseconds. It's 33 milliseconds. Same with these gaps also. Right. Now our display is updating at a rate of 33 milliseconds. Now let's imagine our game also is updating at a same frame rate, which is right. So what will happen is our frame will be displayed and the frame will be sent to the display. Next frame will be computed, it will be sent to the display. Next frame will be computed, it will be sent to the display, and so on. Right. Now let's imagine a case where the display rates are different. So the display rate is still 30 FPS, but our game frame is rendered at, let's say, 45 FPS, which is higher than the display rate. So the GPU updates this frame, it updates the display. But in the middle of the refresh cycle, there's another frame which comes from the GPU, and that's why the GPU tries to update this frame as well. So what will happen in this case? In this case, let's say the first game frame looks like this. The second game frame looks like this. So you have a triangle that is moved, right? On the display side, the first frame is displayed as it is. But since this second frame comes in the middle of the refresh cycle of the display, what will happen is on the display side, the GPU would start rendering the second frame in a scanline order, which would lead to half of the frame being rendered like this and the other half being rendered like this. There would be a split here. And this split is known as screen tearing, right? So this is the issue that Vsync is trying to solve. Now, how does Vsync solve this issue? We know that this issue is majorly because there are frames in between the refresh cycle of the display. What if we match the frame rate of our game with the refresh rate of our display? If the frame rate of the game and the refresh rate of the display both are matched, then they would work synchronously and would avoid these kind of splitting artifacts, which is again screen tearing artifacts. There are different ways in which the GPU implements Vsync. One of them is double buffer. So if you have a final frame and you have a display, this is display and this is game frame. So what double buffer is it will have two game frames. This is the frame which is being displayed and this is the frame to which the data is written to. A GPU will write to this frame. Once the writing of this frame is finished, then it will swap these frames. And this particular frame would be shown on the display. Because of this behavior, the GPU is always writing to a frame which is not visible. A real world example of double buffering is a double-sided whiteboard. Let's say I'm showing one side of the whiteboard to my audience. So whatever is written on the whiteboard is being shown to the audience. But somebody else is writing to the back side of the whiteboard. When that person who is writing to the back side of the whiteboard finishes his writing, then we swap them. That is what is double buffer. So to our audience, we would never show how that frame is written, right? All the writing is done in the background. And when the writing is complete, we show it to our audience. That is how Vsync works with double buffer. Let's discuss the pros and cons of Vsync. The pro is that it avoids screen tearing. You won't see any kind of screen tearing artifacts on your game. The con is, since we are reducing the refresh rate of our game, it might be possible that I have pressed a button, but that frame is still not shown on the display, which is what causes the input lag, right? I'll feel that I have pressed a button, but I'm still not seeing the output on the display. And that is one of the cons. That was summary of Vsync and how it works. There is something called adaptive Vsync. What adaptive Vsync does is, let's say the display rate is like 30 FPS. If our frame rate of the game goes above 30 FPS, then it will cap the frame rate to 30. If our frame rate goes below 30 FPS, then it would disable Vsync. There is a trade-off between the update speed of the game versus the screen tearing artifacts. If you understood what Vsync is and how it works, let me know in the comments, and do press the subscribe button. See you in the next video. Take care. Bye-bye.